Joining me now to discuss this is Dr. Chris Parry, former Royal Navy Rear Admiral who served as Director General at the Ministry of Defence and as a NATO commander. Chris, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Nigel.
So we have the example, don't we, of Tony Abbott, the Australian Prime Minister. They faced a very similar problem to us, albeit the distance from Indonesia to Australia was far greater than the width of the English Channel. The boats were bigger, the numbers on the boats were bigger, but he did in the end just put those boats under tow and send them straight back, tow them straight back to Indonesia. And I can't see, unless we do turn boats around, or unless we do deport people who don't qualify as refugees, I can't see this stopping. And I've been saying now for over a year, as the numbers get bigger and bigger, you ain't seen nothing yet, and I've been proved right over and over and over. And the British public, as you well know, Chris, are getting angrier. This has now risen to the third biggest concern of voters in this country. So Priti Patel is right to say we should turn the boats back, but there are practical difficulties, aren't there, with turning around dinghies?
Yeah, this isn't going to work, Nigel. Any practitioner at sea will tell you that any interaction at close quarters between small boats is going to result in people being tipped into the water or a tragedy occurring. It'll only take one injury or death for the whole policy to fall down. I think you're right. It is probably the last throw of the dice, not because of Priti Patel not trying. I think she has, actually, and so have her civil servants. It's just that national and international law, as it stands right now, doesn't allow you any wriggle room whatsoever. And unless we revise the strategy for how we defend our maritime border, and we've seen the failure of strategy in Afghanistan recently, doesn't matter how good your tactics are on the ground, if you haven't got your strategy right, then I'm afraid you're doomed. And this is the case, I'm afraid, in the Channel. It needs a complete revision of strategy. We need to say to ourselves, look, we've got an irresponsible partner next to us in the form of France. They're not actually putting up their responsibilities as a sovereign nation and controlling their offshore zone. They're simply dumping people into the water and actually heading them towards Britain.
Well,
now, that is a fundamental threat to our security.
Well, worse than that, and you may not know this, but I showed a map the other evening on this show of a French naval vessel that escorted one of the migrant boats to within 4 miles of the Kent beaches. I mean, they may as well just take them straight across. I mean, Chris, what would you do? And I do understand that turning around these boats in a channel does constitute some risk. I understand that. I accept that. But what would you do? What would your strategy be to stop this illegal trade?
Well, it's very simple. When we had a problem in Libya, we pushed our defences right up to the coast of Libya. We stopped people getting in the water. Obviously, it's a bit more out of sight, out of mind there. But we have the technology to be able to detect these boats assembling on the French coast. We have the ability to be able to tell the French when they're coming off the coast, and the French have the ability and the capacity to stop it. So there's a political will issue, there's a technological issue, but with me, I'd have a drone up 24 hours a day in the middle of the channel. I'd be looking into France with electro-optics, with radar, and intercepting mobile phone calls, and I'd be saying to the French, they're departing from here now. And every time the French failed to do it, I'd name and shame them. They've lost control of their own offshore zone, and we shouldn't be putting up with such an irresponsible neighbour. This is the sort of behaviour you expect from a third world country, not from a major European power.
Okay.
So you push the border right up to the French coast, and we do the surveillance of our own waters, and we start putting pressure on the French, both financially and politically, in order to get them to behave themselves.
Okay, well, I think it might work. It certainly would make a very big difference. Chris Parry, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.